find a vehicle in your area, which should be very easy to do if you're patient at the end of the day. But in this next topic, we're going to talk about how the new Tesla vehicle pricing for the Model 3 and the Model Y makes absolutely zero sense. I've actually put it out on a chart, of course, with the federal tax credit, the EV tax credit, and I was really surprised to see that it really just does not make any sort of sense at all in terms of price point for vehicle and value or anything like that. But let me know what your thoughts on it. But we're going to get into it. But if you're just joining in, my name is Dennis. I love talking about Tesla hacking, as I like to call it, but basically just getting the best behind Tesla at the best financing rate. So definitely hit that subscribe if you're interested. And today's video is actually sponsored by my Patreon link where you can support the channel, but more on that later. All right, so let us take a look at this. If you don't know what happened very, very recently, there's a couple of things. I mean, about 2 weeks ago, there was massive discounts across the board. Model Y got a $3,000 price discount across the board. And a couple of weeks before that, we found out that the Model Y qualifies for the full $7,500 federal tax credit. And if you don't know how that tax credit works and with the income limits and all that stuff, definitely check out a video on the channel where I go through a whole explained and step-by-step with all that stuff where you can calculate yourself on how much you'd actually benefit on it. But even from that, the Model 3 only qualified for $3,750 tax credit on the Model 3 standard range version and of course the Model 3 long range version. The Model 3 Long Range was just introduced or reintroduced just a few days ago, and one can only speculate, or most people are speculating, because it does not have the older 350-mile range. This has the LFP battery from China, and that's why it only qualifies for half of the tax credit at $3,750. But if you go for the Model 3 Performance, you get the full $3,000 or you get the full $7,500 federal tax credit, and so then you will actually get and redeem all of that. But of course, I put all these trims, all these models on the Model 3 and the Model Y on a spreadsheet, and I also added in the $7,000 or $3,750 tax credit. And you'll be surprised by the results, or maybe you won't be, because maybe you essentially did the same thing. And so we've got right here at the bottom or at the top, the Model 3 standard range real wheel drive versus the Model Y standard range all-wheel drive. And you can see the difference when you factor in the tax credit between the both of them is about a $3,000 more premium for the Model Y variant. And that could make some sense at the end of it if you need the extra space, if you need that much more vehicle. I mean, you're basically paying about what, like 10% more in price for, I'd say arguably about a 20 to 30% more vehicle in terms of space, all-wheel drive and all that stuff. But it is a very interesting difference to see a $3,000 difference between the Model Y standard range rear-wheel drive and the Model Y standard range all-wheel drive. Did I say Model 3? But anyways, definitely some pretty interesting stuff. But getting to the long range variants, which a couple things to note here. If you buy a Model 3 long range, you're not getting delivery of this vehicle until June, which doesn't seem like a faraway time frame for now. It's next month, but it also just says June arbitrarily. So this could be early June, late June, could be the end of June, or Tesla, as you all know, Tesla loves pushing or changing estimated delivery dates or EDDs. That could be a July or even August depending on the demand. But I would say at this point, they haven't changed this at all. So I feel like a lot of people are hesitant to buy this vehicle because it kind of just doesn't make a lot of sense. And looking at the pricing, you start to really realize it just does not make any sort of sense. So MSRP of $47,240, a tax credit of $37,50, which I would argue to say everybody buying a Model Y long range, or at least trying to finance one, will qualify for that, because you basically have to make 1-to-1 of income. And if you make $47,000 in W-2 single earner income, your tax liability is 100% going to be $37,50. But of course, if consult a CPA at the end of the day, not financial advice, that gives you an adjusted price of $43,490. But Jumping to the Model Y long range side, because yes, the MSRP is higher at $50,240, but the tax credit is also higher at $7,500. That gives you an adjusted price for a Model Y long range of $42,740. And maybe I'm sure this math is correct, so correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't believe it when I saw it, but that means that a Model Y long range, after you factor in the tax credit, is $750 cheaper than a Model 3 long range, which doesn't make any sort of sense to me, and it probably doesn't make any sort of sense to you all, but it really feels like I definitely could not recommend a Model 3 long range at all, unless this Model 3 long range is it the new Model 3 Project Highland? I mean, maybe we'll hear about it in this next coming week with the investor date if they're going to unveil the cover on that. But I feel like they would have hidden the vehicle a little bit more or given us some sort of inclination on that. But I really feel like a lot of people are probably not going to be buying a Model 3 long range when you can get essentially the Model Y long range at the same lower adjusted price. And if you're confused on what all this means with the tax credits, definitely watch some of the videos on the channel that explains all the different tax credit and stuff like that. And I mean, yes, the initial price, the initial finance price and all that stuff is going to be a little bit higher, or essentially $3,000, $3,700 more. But still, at the end of the day, you're essentially going to get all of that back, especially if you're a W-2 income earner that's going to get the $7,500 federal tax credit back. And if you're looking for different financing options and you don't want to put up all this money and you want this like $7,500 back now instead of a little bit later, that's where financing partners like Tenet come into play. Tenet is a different financing company that partners with credit unions and other banks out there that can offer you lower financing monthly payments. And they do this by deferring a portion of that loan all the way to the end, maybe even that $7,500 federal tax credit. Because they can do that, that gives you a lower monthly payment for each month. And this is good if you want more cash flow or a lower monthly payment at the end of the day. And so there is a strategy here where you'd use Tenet, defer that $7,500 and then get the tax credit next year and then refinance the whole thing with a different credit union. So definitely check out Tenet, and thank you to Tenet for sponsoring this video and a bunch of other videos. And check out Tenet's link down below in the description. But at the end of the day, Model Y, it is a 100% recommendation if you are literally comparing this at the end of the day. And I told a couple friends about this earlier today, and the one thing I got back was but I don't like bigger cars. Well, the Model Y long range is not that much bigger of a car at the end of the day. So what I would say is go to the Tesla centers, try and find one that has both of these vehicles and just test drive both of them. And you'll notice that the Model Y is not that much bigger, and it also doesn't ride that much higher. It's not really a true SUV at the end of the day. It's kind of like an e-SUV. Also like the Model X, I wouldn't say is a true SUV, but because of the ride height and all that stuff. And then jumping to the last trim, we've got the Model Y Performance, and you can see, Model 3 Performance, $53,240 with an adjusted $45,740, and the Model Y Performance, which I will say, Model Y long range, you're probably going to get it within 2 months, but if you order a Model Y Performance, that is an EDD hack, and you'll most likely get it ASAP. Because if you take a look on the screen right now, you can see we've got the Model Y selected. If we switch it to a Model Y long range, then you can see it's a delivery date between May to June. But if we switch it to Model Y Performance, it just says May of 2023. And do you know why they're doing this? The reason why they're doing this is because the Tesla Model Y Tesla Model Y Performance is a higher margin car, is more revenue. So they prioritize these vehicles to deliver them to customers. And so that is why you'll get it a lot more quicker than a long range at the end of the day. But jumping to this, you can see after you adjust for the tax credits, or even if you adjust for without the tax credit, it is only a $1,000 difference between the Model Y Performance and the Model 3 Performance. So still, I would still say I would recommend getting the Model Y Performance over the Model 3 Performance, because you are definitely getting much more value by paying $1,000 and getting that much more space. It's essentially I don't even know, 1% of the vehicle or 2% of the vehicle at that price point, and it certainly makes sense. Now, I certainly get it. If you are someone that loves low riding sports sedans and you want that trackability, I guess, then a Model 3 Performance could make sense. But if you've got any sort of space needs or a family or a dog, then a Model Y Performance would make a lot of sense at the end of the day. But let me know what your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking. You know, this was definitely pretty eye-opening me, and it really goes to show that Tesla Model 3 and Model Y pricing makes zero sense. And really, Tesla is trying to promote the Model Y as much as possible and to try and price them as close between the Model Y and the Model 3. And this makes sense because the production of the Model Y from Giga Austin, Texas, and Fremont is, I think it's like double or even 3 times the amount of the Model 3. So certainly makes sense. And as the Model 3 starts to ramp down and maybe this Project Highland comes out this year or later this year, that's probably what they're going to try and pivot to. But let me know what your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking. We're going to jump into the next topic. But before we do that, this video is actually sponsored by my Patreon link. Down below in the description is the Patreon link where you can support the channel, and there's a variety of benefits, but some of them include actually scheduling a call with me where you can ask me any questions about buying a Tesla, selling a Tesla, or even financing a Tesla. And after you join the Patreon, you get a link to my buying guide, which is the ultimate buying guide that has all the links that I use to get the best possible deal on a Tesla, including financing and credit unions and banks that are lower than Tesla financing, some even as low as 2.99 to 3.7%. So definitely check it out. Link down below in the description, the Patreon link. And as an added benefit, I do respond to all DMs or direct messages in the Patreon app at a certain level. So definitely check it out. Link